Founded in 1976 with the mission of eradicating endemic poverty from rural populations in Bangladesh, Grameen Bank has grown into a revolutionary microfinance institution with a clientele of more than 8 million rural Bangladeshi citizens. The brainchild of Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, Grameen Bank has had great success in Yunus's home country, and this model of microfinance has spread to all corners of the world since its inception, with partner branches in countries ranging from the United States to Ghana. Grameen Bank-inspired microfinance institutions have flourished in a diverse array of environments.
Oh, I don't do very hard work. I'm an easygoing man. I just look at the conventional banks, how they do it. And once I learned how they do it, each piece, and I just do the opposite. And it works. They go to the rich people, so I decided to go to the poor people. They go to men, so I decided to go to women.
This past winter, I traveled to Grameen Bank's headquarters in Dhaka to investigate how this model exactly functions. I still did not quite fully understand how microfinance institutions develop long-lasting ties with their poverty-stricken clientele and sustain lending practices past the first few periods. Through attending several presentations while in Dhaka on this issue, I soon learned that because Grameen Bank does not take collateral on the loans it distributes, this model depends a great deal on relationships between the loan distributor and the customer, which form primarily on trust between the two parties. The distributors fundamentally must rely on the poor customer's goodwill and desire to pull herself out of poverty. On the other hand, the customer, when faced with one of the only offers in her life to receive a loan, must believe in the bank's intentions and mission. Thus, microfinance institutions modeled similarly to Grameen Bank must establish a trust and understanding within the community context in order to carry out their aims of empowering poor women and ultimately alleviating poverty on a regional and global scale. My primary motive for embarking on this project was to explore the complex relationships formed from microfinance transaction, whose lenders and borrowers deviated from the norms of these positions in mainstream financial exchanges. Having spent my winter focusing on the economic aspects of microfinance institutions, I had still remained puzzled by this idea of trust that was thrown around during meetings, field trips, interviews, and which seemed to be the basis upon which microfinance can not only exist but thrive. At the conclusion of my time in Bangladesh, I still had many questions that were unanswered, such as, how does microfinance successfully operate in so many cultural contexts? How do relationships get fostered that last beyond the first period and allow the lending process to continue for years with such a low default rate? And how has the microfinance revolution, as called by Marguerite Robinson, hold such sustained success when so many other interventions targeting rural populations eventually fail? As I will argue in my paper, microfinance institutions' leverage of language and identity develops a strong relationship built upon trust between the borrower and the lender, which allows their mission in diverse cultural contexts and through generations and generations of borrowers. As a point of entry into this topic, I will first discuss the language these MFIs, or microfinance institutions, use to brand themselves to the public as institutions that serve the poor. I will examine the language used in the names and mission statements of 5 microfinance institutions in order to get a preliminary understanding of how exactly these institutions would like to be perceived within the communities they target. As I will discuss, the language used in these titles subtly indexes the trust that microfinance institutions seek to establish by emphasizing the ownership of the bank by the village people, the opportunity for borrowers to start anew, and the unity that these MFIs hope to create among borrowers and lenders alike. From here, I will then delve deeper into how this relationship evolves through a case study in Mexico on Financiera Comenzar. I have conducted several interviews with Financiera Comenzar and will discuss how Financiera Comenzar utilizes language and identity in order to foster a strong relationship with the local communities it affects. As a means of tackling one of my research questions, I will discuss how, at the face of a cultural climate very different from that of Grameen Bank's clientele, Financiera Comenzar adapts its practices so as to better assimilate into the local culture. In this discussion, I will bring up ideas discussed by Kate McLean in her work titled Translation and Cross-Cultural Research, an example from Bolivia. I will analyze this discussion through the lens of Duranty's theory of culture as communication, with a particular focus on how these institutions depend on indexical meaning in language in order to develop trust. Then, I will look more closely at how microfinance successfully utilizes language and identity, while other interventions with similar good intentions do not share in its success. I will compare Financiera Comenzar's results with that of midwifery instruction as discussed in Bridget Jordan's Cosmopolitical Obstetrics, and will work through how these two interventions differ in their approaches to the rural population and their acknowledgement of local cultures. I will go through each of the broader issues that Jordan lays forth, generic problems with intervention, the differing worldviews in the didactic structure of learning, of teaching and learning, and will examine how Financiera Comenzar adopts linguistic and cultural measures in order to avoid these issues. I will then analyze these practices through legitimate peripheral participation, as discussed by Lev, in order to understand how MFIs like Financiera Comenzar develop stronger and stronger ties with new members and utilize existing social capital in order to initiate the trust process. In conclusion, I will focus in this project on analyzing how exactly microfinance institutions maintain relationships of trust with their borrowers through their particular use of language and the recognition of the local identity. There is virtually nothing written on this subject matter in current scholarly discourse, and so I hope that this paper will illustrate the linguistic and cultural approaches of microfinance institutions and how these approaches serve to foster trust and ultimately facilitate the execution of these institutions' main mission to lift rural populations out of extreme poverty.